Could you tell us a bit more about the Pharisees? Because for many Christians, it seems when they talk about Jews in the time of Jesus, they are talking about Pharisees in particular. And Pharisaical or Phariseeism is a term that gets used quite a lot. Could you give some clarity as to who the Pharisees were? What was it about them? What were they thinking? That kind of stuff.
Yes, I mean, one of the things that one of the misunderstandings about the Pharisees is one that they were all powerful and they were like rulers. Actually, that in Jerusalem in the temple, which went to link to Jewish political power, it was more the Sadducees. There were a few Pharisees in the Sanhedrin, the ruling body, but it was dominated by the Sadducees, who were more the compromisers, less theological, more liberal theologically, more status quo politically. The Pharisees had this thing about purity, and possibly arose, because the roots are not ever so clear, but in the Maccabean period, when it was this great, we're going to stand by the law, and then they had a few years, decades of independence, that, although it started off with a cry for purity, it quickly became very corrupt. And so the Pharisees probably grew out of that soil where some of them said, no, it's purity. That was the heart of our thing. And we're going to try and be pure and loyal to the law. And they were widespread. Sadducees mainly were in Jerusalem. Pharisees, probably in every major town, there would be Pharisees who, maybe a bit like the religious police or something, they were respected. I think the common people respected them because they were very devout and serious. I'm not sure many people how liked they were, because they excluded people because of sin. They were very into the oral law, which was like the development of how do you apply the law today? How do you make sure you're not going to break the law? Well, you put some fences before that. You fence off the law so that you don't even go anywhere near breaking the law. So you get all the detailed laws about, well, rules, which became as significant as the law itself. So it went way beyond the law, and that's what Jesus countered. You know, your interpretation is too narrow and you've missed the heart of this thing, is really Jesus's accusation to the Pharisees. So you've got to be better than them. Your righteousness must exceed, which wasn't to add more rules, but to fulfill the heart of this thing. And the reason that most of us think maybe Pharisees are like all the Jewish people is because they are the group that get mentioned so often in the Gospels. And I think that's because you wouldn't confuse Jesus with a zealot. You wouldn't confuse Jesus with a Sadducee. He clearly wasn't an Essene, because they were out and ascetic. But in some ways, he was like a Pharisee in terms of his broad theology. And yet he was a Pharisee that was a bit different. And so it's like you have to mark that really clearly from both sides. The Pharisees will want to make sure, no, he's not one of us. And Jesus would want to make sure that people don't confuse him. So that line is drawn very clear because it had to be, whereas the others were obvious.